the truth is out there, but so are lies.
I kind of want to talk about
Terrence
Terrence
Howard.
Howard.
Oh
So
man,
we
I
gotta.
don't. I don't know. Do you know about this? Did you watch any of the? Did you watch the interview?
Yes.
See, I watched the whole thing where he talks about the breakdown about the frequency, the periodic elements table. Dude, I watched just that segment alone, and I was like, this man is back crazy. I could see why they kicked him off of Iron Man.
Oh my God, man! And then his story about Robert Downey Jr. How he didn't back him up and all this, and I'm just like,
Yeah, nobody wants to
what?
associate with anybody like this. Like, what? Like
Yeah.
I thought that he wanted more money. I think that's what they spinned it. I think like that,
I
and maybe they were just trying to distance themselves from this. Like you don't want to be part of this whole trajectory of movies and everything, and be like, this guy is actually crazy. We need to get him out. I think is what I don't
okay,
know.
but
Disney
you're
Disney.
crazy. You understand that, right? Because you don't understand that 1 times 1 equals 2.
Oh man.
I need you to understand, right? That the fun, it's comical at
There's people
how
explaining already like how it's not even right. Like everything he was talking about, like some whatever physics, whatever he was talking about, they were like, it's not even right. It doesn't even function in that way. It's
it
just
does not. No, and so I've got a 4 minute
Let's
video
talk
here.
about how
I've got a 4 minute video here talking about this is Eric Weinstein on Terrence Howard's Joe Rogan interview. Are you interested in listening to this? This
let's
is
have it.
all right. So let's make sure you can hear everything, right?
Yeah, I can.
let's talk about how we got into the situation with the Terrence Howard podcast. Okay? We do a guided tour of science, and the guided tour is a huge danger to the public support of science. Let me explain. If you say, I went to France and I toured Versailles, I saw Versailles. Did you really see Versailles? Do you know how many rooms are in Versailles? Did you visit them all? What percentage of the grounds did you have access to? So my claim is that we're doing the same thing with science. And let me say how it relates to Terrence Howard's podcast. Terrence Howard went off the guided tour, and he found all sorts of rooms that experts know exist, but that the public is sort of misled into thinking aren't there. So I'll give you a very simple example. The periodic table. There is no the periodic table. And everybody who cares about periodic table stuff should know that there is no the periodic table. The physicist's favorite version of the periodic table is called I don't know whether it's Genet or Jeanette because I've never heard it said even once in my presence, left step periodic table. But there are multiple periodic tables having to do with the complexity of electron orbitals. And when Terrence Howard tells you, oh, I'm looking at the Walter Russell periodic table, and it's a spiral. Okay, well, you say spirals, right? But the issue is, let me tell you something else he's going to say. He's going to say, well, if there are vibrations in atoms, then there's also vibrations in music. And so everything that is an atomic vibration is also therefore a musical vibration. Milton Babbitt, I think, explored this at Princeton in the music department, and his student Stanley Jordan, who I met, he and I discussed that Stanley Jordan, who's a brilliant guitarist, was mining this for inspiration. What do the molecules sound like? So that's not crazy, right? So it's not fair. Wait. It's not fair to say, okay, well, this guy is just like loop-de-doo because he knows about a spiral periodic table, or he's comparing the sound of a vibration to something in atomic physics. Furthermore,
But Eric, you would never say that Stradivarius played an incredible cesium note. I mean, it only goes one way, and you never have it go the other way from woo to non-woo. It's always from non-woo to woo, and they borrow
from woo to non-woo. When Kekuli saw a snake eating its tail and decided that that was the inspiration for benzene, right? There are ways in which woo ends up as non-woo. So again, the thing is, you and I can also have a different perspective. You may say that there is no instance of woo becoming non-woo. I don't mind disagreeing, but I warn you, I know a lot of history. The thing that I'm going to say is that it pays not to rush off Terrence Howard's appearance with the back of our hands. And let me say where I was headed with this. The circle of fifths in music is not a circle. It's a spiral. And the
Yeah,
reason for
that's true.
that is that you can't have both a perfect octave and a perfect Pythagorean fifth as part of an even tempered scale. Number theoretically, it just can't work. And as a result, if you choose special numbers of notes, namely 12, 29, and 53, you can get a perfect octave and a nearly perfect third. Those special numbers cause that nearly perfect fifth. Those special numbers have that property. Most people don't know that that's true. If they sit down at a piano, they see 12 notes on it. So what happens when Terrence, for example, figures out that lots of things are true that aren't well known? There is no the periodic table. There's a spiral one. There is no circle of fifths. There's a spiral one. And you can associate tones with vibrations and molecules with vibrations and frequencies. You take all of that and you push it together and you create this delicious amalgam where everything is connecting to everything. And this is part of the pleasures of the overly associative mind.
So, the reason I thought that was interesting is because he's basically saying like, don't throw it out, like what he's saying. The guy is literally saying 1 times 1 equals 2. I can't how, like, I totally get the whole idea of like, yeah, maybe you should be a little more open minded about connecting things where you don't see connections. But
Well, he's trying to connect it on the basis that a frequency that it may be in physics or in this chemistry, the elements is the same frequency as a note, and that's what he's trying to say. But I mean, Eric Weinstein is a very intelligent individual. He's a mathematician and an economist. He runs a high profiting hedge fund, and maybe that's why he's trying to say like, don't write him off, like don't write this off.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you
and
watch
I
it,
get it.
it's just hearing him talk about it and then watching Terrence Howard talk about it. It's just like he's out of his mind.
That exact thank you. Like
He's
even
out of
before
his
you
mind.
get there, he's just fucking crazy, right? Like
He's just like talking about like, oh, at 13, I already knew this. I already have known this. I was just like, what? Like I was like, oh, you're actually crazy. Is that
yeah.
after I started watching it? Then
He
I'm
he
like, I
dropped
think
out
I
of
need.
school and because he disagreed with one of his professors and then went off to make his own math. That's really what happened. He had a hard time in school and then decided he was going to change the rules, over associate the things, which I think is probably a good term. But
I mean,
man,
school's not for everybody, bro. Somebody's got to
true.
flip the burgers. Like that's just the way it is.
Well, I mean,
But
he's a very successful actor, so he found a path that's really lucrative and also probably in line with his skill
man,
set.
let's be real, man. All these theater kids were all so weird in school. You got to believe.
I was a theater kid. So true. Very true. Yeah, I
Very
get it. I get
weird.
it.
I did a couple plays in high school and in college. I'm like, I know I'm weird.
Yeah, no,
you
definitely.
know,
Um,
you have to be. If you want that much attention and want to be, there's something wrong with you.
I don't know that I wanted the attention, but it was just kind of fun to try to be someone else for a little while. You know, that was
Yeah, it's
the
called
kind of the cool thing.
schizophrenia.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, when you can control it, it's not. It's called acting. When
Uh,
you can't control it, it's called schizophrenia. Yeah, no, it's so wild to me because it also, a lot of the science YouTubers who are actual scientists also came out to like quickly address this. I think is the important feature here, that he's kind of crazy and he's speaking out of his expertise area.
well, okay, so we've had this conversation that what the danger of someone coming out like this and putting misinformation out there, right? Like just not fact checking, and it makes everything very sketchy, right? Where now you see it on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, all these videos about this and talking about this, going like, this isn't correct information, but they're making it factual. And that's, I guess, the power of someone that has some type of power, because he did come out in Iron Man, the first one, and he's been in a lot of movies. He's been nominated, I think, also academically. I mean, through the Academy, I think he got nominated for Hustle and Flow.
Have you
So it's
seen
just like
Empire? I haven't seen
no, I
that.
haven't. I haven't seen it, but he's in it, and
Is it worth?
apparently it's
Is it
super.
worth seeing?
I've never seen it, but they say it's worth the watch.
Okay.
And in the movie Hustle and Flow, he was really good in it, and he was even good in Iron Man. But so he's
Yeah, he
got
was.
some star power, and for him to come out and say something like this is just like, oh, you're actually crazy. But
Yeah.
after that, a few weeks later, I started watching these weird TikTok videos and weird Instagram videos about it, talk about this and the frequency and the hertz and all that. Like I don't know, it introduces something. It created something else now.
Well, that's the scary part. Is a lot, and I think this is why a lot of the science YouTubers were quick to action to come out and comment on it, is because of how social media works, and because that's the kind of thing now where you've got a whole bunch of the youth that are like, oh yeah, it's 1 times 1 equals 2. That,
Hmm.
this guy's like counterculture. I'm doing counterculture math. But the thing is, like, in order to even you need to understand something before you can dance with it, before you can toy with it, right? Like, fully. That's the whole thing, right? Like, you can play a bunch of random notes and they'll sound like they're jazz occasionally, but it's all random. Like, you need to learn jazz in order to play jazz and riff off of it, and break the
You need
rules,
to learn how to
learn the
play
rule
an
set.
instrument first before you
Yeah,
can
even
start
better.
playing. Yeah, you have to learn
Even
how to play
better.
an instrument first, then study music, and then study jazz, and then try to, because it's not everybody could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's built for jazz. There's some people that are like rock only and then jazz only, and it sounds silly, but it's just that's the way it is.
Yeah, and think about like the way that science is set up in education too. Like, you're talking about not everyone can do it. I fundamentally believe everyone can do science, but I also fundamentally believe that the education pipeline is not set up in a way that facilitates everybody being able to do science. You know,
Yeah,
that
it's
shit.
not set up that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's set up in a way that it works. For a lot of people, I think is the way I want to phrase it right now. It works for a lot of people very well, but it doesn't accommodate like everybody. Um, and so the question is the people who are interested in science, but they can't go through that process because it's not doesn't jive with them, right? And they're not able to go through that. There are other avenues for them to learn. One of them is not like, oh, I went and reinvented math. You know what I mean? Like
I
that's the
didn't like
wrong
your
answer.
math, so I created a new math.
Exactly. That's the wrong answer, right? The right answer is, here are the tools and educational uh, uh, things that I've done to get to understanding math, right? Like, that's where my head is at. So it feels a little crazy, but here's the question I want to ask you, because this is the other thing that a lot of people have been talking about, is that this was on Joe Rogan's podcast, you know, the hugest,
Yeah.
biggest, largest podcast in the world, right?
Okay, so I don't know if you where you were going with the question with it, but I'm gonna tell you what I think Joe Rogan brought him on, right? Like I think he brought him on as a guest that hey has some crazy theories about maybe physics and chemistry, and is a well-known actor, is in many TV shows, and I think he brought him on for that aspect, and then realized, oh, this guy is batshit crazy,
You think he
and
didn't actually
I
know
don't
like
think,
how deep?
yeah, I
Okay,
don't think
all
he
right.
knew how crazy it was, because
That's
I
fun.
like I don't like it's not like he was debating him on it, and it's just like
Yeah.
he questioned them like how long has you've known this, like when he asked them I think it was something about that, like how long have you known this, or like where did you pick this up from, it's like oh like I was like 14 years old and I already knew this, and then he's like where, like, I think he asked him to like where did you learn this, he's like
From
from
my
like
mother's womb at the
my
age
mother's
of like
womb, like the
-2.
elders. Yeah, like something like what? Like I don't think he knew.
Yeah, it was wild. The interview was actually wild.
Yeah, I don't think he knew. It's like sometimes how you see people get on certain people's podcast and the
Mhm.
guest ends up being a troll. Like I think that's what it's like you didn't realize you invited a crazy until it was too late.
That's
And
a
it's just
really interesting take. I was gonna ask more about. So, I think that that's an actual. I hadn't even considered that. Like honestly, that
because
it was.
it can crack. It's like it like got through the cracks, right? Because it's like when have you ever heard of Terrence Howard talking about this? He's never been on any. At least I've never seen it on any social platform saying,
He's
"Hey,
he's
I
got
now
some
there's a."
YouTube stuff. So, but it wasn't like
Yeah,
super
but there's
popular.
never been TikToks or Instagram where like, "Hey, Iron Man is crazy." Like
Yeah,
what is it? War Machine is crazy. This is the reason Disney why they really got rid of this guy. Like, it's like we haven't seen any of that.
yeah,
I don't think no one knew. I don't think the mass media didn't know. It's like those strange people maybe that follow Terrence Howard that were like, "Hey, whatever happened to Terrence Howard? Like maybe I didn't get there." And I
yeah.
always was under the impression that he got fired and got did wrong by Disney because he asked for more money. That's the impression I always thought about Terrence Howard. And then nothing. There was nothing from Terrence Howard. Like, what did he do after that?
I have no clue. I mean, I was not super aware of him before. Although I was aware of Empire. Like I've heard good things about it, but I haven't sat down to watch it yet.
So yeah, he did Empire from what year was it? He did it from 2015 to 2020. He did Hustle
Okay.
and Flow. So this was pre Iron Man. He did Iron Man in 2008. And then if you really like, he didn't really do a lot of movies. And he's a good actor. Like he's good.
No, he's great in the roles that I've seen him in. But this is the question I wanted to ask about the Joe Rogan podcast is, and it's yeah. So the question I wanted to ask is, what responsibility does Rogan have bringing on guests like this? Because that's the thing that I think also people have talked about. You've already kind of answered that, like you don't think that it was intentional. It was like let's just get like someone interesting who's got some sideways theories.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing too to add to it, right? It's like, okay, so let's interview this guy, right? He was in Iron Man. He's been in great TV shows. He has also like I think he wanted to be a rapper,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's super intelligent. And they gave him an honorary doctorate from SCSU in chemical engineering. So this guy's, he may know something. Like, yes, I'm reading this. Now
What?
he never attended SCSU, but he did get a doctorate in chemical engineering, like I guess an honorary one. They gave him one. So maybe that's why maybe Joe Rogan brought him on. Like someone researched this, saw this, and were like, "Hey, they gave him a doctorate in chemical engineering." Like why?
Well, yeah, I'm still a little taken back by the interview. I had to watch it in small segments because it was so challenging to listen to him talk about himself and all of the
Okay, so I guess
accomplishments that he
he
made.
said that he got a doctorate in chemical engineering from them,
But they
but
haven't said.
they said no, and then they gave him an honorary in humane letters, whatever the hell that means, in
I mean,
2012.
what is this? The other claim that he made was about his patents that he has as like proof for his intelligence or something. There was like a whole chain about that. And I did look that up, and it is not a thing. He filed some patents around VR and augmented VR, augmented reality rather, and they lapsed, and then they're not assigned to him. So he did file some patents somewhere, but filing a patent doesn't mean anything.
Well, he did
Like
too,
that's the
right?
thing.
He did one for the whole virtual reality and merging them together, right? Enhanced sensory experience. And then he
That's the one
has
that I
another
saw.
one for like application, some type of application, but it's related to jewelry.
It's absurd claims I think were made on that podcast, and it's an interesting take that I haven't thought of or heard of, that it was not planned, and it was just kind of like out there. Because Joe Rogan did take a little bit of heat from this from the science community around like, why do you have
Like
this
how,
person on?
yeah, like why do you have this person and you have somebody like Neil Tyson, you know, like
Yeah,
an actual scientist, and this guy's like he's cuckoo.
yeah. So I don't think there's any like real conspiracy here, but I do think that this falls into social media, kind of the way that the TikTokers these days are taking pieces of this. It has become sort of like an undermined cultural conspiracy, I think, in some ways, where people are like, "Oh, I'm not good at math. That's because math is wrong." You know, Terrence Howard said math is wrong. He said 1 × 1 =
Oh
2.
my god,
Like
you got
that's
to
the
see
stuff that's
this.
happening. Well, what do we got here?
I found his patent.
Oh no. Describe it to me.
Crazy. You need to see this.
All right, you, send it.
Like it's just, dude, like from the actual like publication for it, the patent application publication, and
System
it's
and method for merging virtual reality and reality to provide an enhanced sensory
dude, you
experience.
got to see the images go down. You got to see the like just go down. Don't even read any of this. Just go down. It's amazing.
Some cloud stuff. What? Tell me when to stop.
No, wasn't it the one like the yeah, you passed it.
I passed it. I passed it.
Like all of the numbers and then yeah, like
Yeah,
go up.
the lightning
Like
bolt. Sensory experience, and he's got like a C7 lightning bolt. What does that even map to in the document?
I don't know. Like all of this. Like what is all of this?
I mean, I feel like I've seen some. I haven't done patents myself, but I've seen some of this. This is like a cloud network diagram that you would normally find. This is interesting. I don't know that I can make anything of this. I mean, without reading it, I'm not really gonna know. I think the thing though is that this lapsed, is what I saw. So he filed it, and also if he's filing it in 2010, like VR's already been around, and augmented reality's already been around for such a long time. Like the way that patents work is you have to do something new. So I don't know exactly what the claims are here, but it didn't pan out, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and this kind of matches up with the whole degree situation, where he's like, "Oh, I've got like a chemical
Chemical
engineering
engineering.
degree," and it's
You're
just like,
like,
no,
no,
you
you
got a
don't.
humanities.
On it. The number one comment on YouTube is Joe Rogan was on the Terrence Howard experience.
Oh my god. Oh my god. This is so true.
The truth is out there, but so are lies.